Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rotoworld's Week 11 waivers chat. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by our waivers guru, Kyle Dvorchak. His waiver wired article has been live on the site for hours. He gets it up. It's one of the earliest in the entire industry, I would say, Kyle. Kind of a low wattage week. This tends to happen this time of year, especially when there aren't a lot of big injuries. Thankfully, there were not a lot of big injuries in week 10. Michael Thomas is out, but the Saints are on bye this week. Derek Carr, same deal. Injured but on bye. So not a ton of huge names, but there's not no names. Who would you tell people is the premier name on the Week 11 waiver wire?
This is a tough one because I think it kind of depends what your team needs. I'm going to say Keaton Mitchell. I think the other possible name is Devin Singletary coming. He got 30 carries last week, and Keaton Mitchell got like 3 or something. The answer should be Devin Singletary, but at this point in the year, like if you need maybe a 1 week running back filler, like, what are you doing still playing? Grab the guy who can bust off a 30-yard carry, even if it's only on 5 carries, and get Keaton Mitchell.
I would be remiss if I said both were not in my league Hall of Famers, especially Devin Singletary, who I believe is exactly 50%.
50. I know. I was like, can I even include him? So at least Keaton's at like 42 or 6 or something.
He was
Singletary
all the way up to 47 for Keaton, but that's still half the leagues out there. And I get two. He might actually get dropped in a few leagues after he had only 4 touches. He did get, I think, over 70 yards from scrimmage still. So probably won't be too many fantasy managers panicking there. It's weird. It's a short week, though, too. So hopefully you can get him on your roster. It's because if he got dropped, say, like on Tuesday night's waiver wire run, I don't think you'd be able to play him in time for Thursday if you added him. But those are some of the names out there. Ty Chandler, I would say, is probably a must-add as well. Would you not?
Yeah.
He's only 8% rostered, so he is out there in most leagues. I tried to get him in 2 deep leagues last week, 2 14-teamers, and got outbid in both. I had like fairly aggressive bid on him in both leagues too, and didn't get him. That was really depressing. Receiver Brandon Cooks, 173 yards, only 38% rostered. What would you tell people about Noah Brown, by the way? Nico Collins avoided injured reserve with his calf injury, so he should be back in the next week or two. It's become a fairly deep receiver rotation for the Texans. He's an older guy, went through an entire rookie contract in Dallas without really producing, but he's had over 150 yards, back-to-back games. What would be your spiel on people wondering about Noah Brown?
Ironically, he's like in the exact same spot, except as a receiver, as Devin Singletary, whereas as long as the team remains under its current setup, he is a really strong weekly play. How long does that last? It could have only lasted until last week, but like you could also tell me Nico misses 2 more games, as in he comes in just under the 4 that he would have been required to miss. Either feels possible. He didn't practice, I don't think, at all last week. So we've seen a lot of this year. Guy gets up to like a limited session, but that's just the way to ease him back in. He didn't even get to that. So at least this coming week feels very possible for him to miss. And Noah Brown, I pointed out last week, his usage wasn't extremely strong, both under 20% target share, air yard share. That changed, I pointed that out on last week's show, that changed in the most recent set of games. He actually became much more involved and didn't just get home on one long play, which he kind of did a few weeks ago. He's a legit part of one of the better offenses in the NFL. I still think I'd project Tank Dell for more usage than him in the coming games, but he's like pushing for maybe 1B, at least wide receiver 2 status on what like is undoubtedly a top 10 passing attack. We talked about like last week. It feels like that was Stroud's breakout party to get him into the every week doesn't matter matchup QB1. He affirmed that status with this Bengals game.
He really did. And they affirmed too that they're ready to treat him like that, where they were kind of keeping the restrictor plate on for no reason. I would say after he started out hot, slumped ever so briefly. They kind of like sleepwalked through games with the Panthers and Falcons. They were not optimizing their offense. They were kind of forced into optimizing their offense with the running back injury and a Bucs defense that's a lot worse against the pass than the run in week 9. He rewards them, and then they stick with the approach against the Bengals. It's hard to see that genie going in the bottle. If you have any question of any kind, by the way, feel free to get it in. We're going to answer it. We have a few coming up. Kyle, I'll ask you one more question. You had a rare 0% rostered player in your waiver wire article, right? Or I kind of agree with Jalen Guyton. I don't think he totally surpassed Quentin Johnson on the depth chart. Quentin Johnson finally started making a few plays late in the second half yesterday after making a few low lights in the first half and third quarter. But what kind of people should be adding Jalen Guyton, and what are realistic expectations for Jalen Guyton in a really, really, really banged up Chargers receiver core?
Yeah, Guyton's got like iconic. You add him, he goes 0 on 4 targets and
Yes.
does nothing. And then the next week, once he, this week he's going to pop up to 16% rostered in Yahoo leagues. He's going to disappoint everyone. And then 1 week after that, he pops up 3, 102 and 2 or something like that. I have to imagine this guy who's like 53 man adjacent level. Like he really is a guy you don't want to, if you're a Chargers fan, see getting a ton of reps. He should profile as a team's like Marvin Hall or name like obscure guy who pops up for a 2 touchdown game once a year. But he's not. This team is forced to put him into an every down role, and they want to have that deep outside field stretcher. And he has the speed to do that. He's maybe not the most talented option they have on the roster, but he at least has the speed to pop up for the occasional big play. And when you're out there for every single snap and your defense isn't particularly good, so you're going to get into constant shootouts, this guy's going to pop up for like a good wide receiver 2 or even like low end wide receiver 1 game, sort of the way Rashid Shaheed does.
I was going to literally say he's a poor man's Rashid Shaheed, which isn't the player you necessarily want to be a poor man's of, but he's a poor man's Rashid Shaheed.
I think that guy has utility for most teams, though. Someone who just like makes safeties respect your deep speed, even if they're like not the best field stretcher. Like AJ Brown also makes teams respect the deep speed, but he can do everything else. Whereas Jalen Guyton can quickly get 20 yards downfield. That's about it. But that guy has utility, and he's going to, at some point, if you're starting him a lot, he's going to win you a fantasy game.
Guyton had some pop-up games before his torn ACL really kind of derailed his career. All right, we got some questions rolling in now. We're going to try to get to all of these. We'll start with weekly viewer Chad. He's got a few questions. Chad, we'll get to several of your questions too. Would we drop Taysom Hill with the offense seemingly falling apart? I don't know if they're falling apart necessarily. It's kind of one bad game, but they are really injured. They are now on bye. We don't know Derek Carr's week 12 status when the Saints come off their week 11 bye. Kyle, you and I kind of joked. Week 10 was finally all right, well, I guess there's no arguments against Taysom anymore. And he goes out and basically donuts. Do you consider Taysom Hill a must hold through the Saints' week 11 bye?
Yeah, I'm probably trying to hold him. Like, I feel like that's probably to some degree the nature of the Taysom game, is that he can become anything he needs you to, but also like the generalist is going to have some games where, gets one target, or they don't find a way to creatively use him. He gets stuffed on his 2 or 3 carries and doesn't get in the paint. And specifically for Tanner Hudson didn't run like any routes. He was on the field for like a third of the routes. I was pretty sure he would have been out there more. As soon as you pull up the numbers, like, no, he was part of a like 3 tight end platoon. And just happened to get schemed up a bunch of targets on the first drive. And that was it. They didn't use him again. So I thought about adding him to the column, and I looked at his usage and I was like, oh no, this guy's like a backup, a deep.
I think
backup.
The only meaning of Tanner Hudson's week 10 sort of pop up is that Irv Smith is very, very bad. Kyle, I'm not even going to throw this one to you. Chad, we're going to get to several of your questions, but yeah, it would be crazy to play Danny DeVito against the Commanders. Even though they're so bad, you cannot stream Tommy DeVito at all. He really is just that bad. The situation is that bad. Chandler wants to know, should he trade away Justin Fields, James Conner, and Mike Evans for DeAndre Swift and Josh Allen? 6-point passing. I think I have an answer here, Kyle. What is yours?
Actually,
I'm not sure. I was going to say I would.
Wait, no, he says, sorry, keep reading. I do have Burrow, but gives me 2 solid options. I assume, unless you like don't have a trade, bait at the deadline, if someone sees you out there with 2 quarterbacks as you enter the deadline, I feel like your leverage in that situation has to be relatively low. They're like, what are you going to do? Like, cut one of them, or you're just stuck holding the roster spot?
True.
Not that you still couldn't get something for them, but this is like the worst possible spot to be like, how can I maneuver? Like, how can I play 8D chess as we're 24 hours away from the deadline or whatever your deadline is? Maybe we're a week away. But point being, it feels very cute to do that when you already have Burrow on the roster and Mike Evans is crushing, and DeAndre Swift, on the other hand, is kind of like fine, slumping a little bit, and he didn't play last week. But before that,
slumping. He has been.
Yeah, the thing is, he just doesn't get goal line usage, and he's still a committee back. He's his team's 1A, but like, I'm keeping Connor as a comparable guy for Swift, and Evans in terms of like the value Josh Allen provides over Burrow. Evans is worth more than someone like Burrow, or Allen in this case.
I think that my first inclination was to say yes. Then I think there is just too much value inside one, especially when you already have Joe Burrow. Allen's an upgrade on Burrow, but I would rather just play matchups of Fields and Burrow and keep Mike Evans.
Also, yeah, there can still be like, Burrow gets the Ravens. Like maybe and Fields gets a great matchup. Like you're going to use, let's say in that scenario, you would have used Josh Allen over him there, but the discount between Josh Allen and Fields for a single game or maybe a second game, like you also have the second quarterback that is still really good, still probably a QB1 based on his rushing.
Kyle, what is our latest Tony Pollard cope? Or are we finally waving
No, dude, there's no cope. We suck. We lost, dude.
Did we? I don't know. Are you sure? Is there any more to it than that? Or they score 49 points. They score 7 touchdowns. He doesn't get any of those touchdowns. He doesn't even reach 20 carries. He hasn't cleared 15 carries since week 3. Is there anything at all? I mean, we're not cutting him, of course, but is a low end RB2 saying, is that too low, too high? What's the line?
I mean, that's probably about fair. I'd probably dude, I'm going to end up ranking him higher. The thing is, I'm a sucker, and I'm going to end up ranking him higher. But realistically, he should probably be ranked as RB19. He is dreadful in every efficiency metric, and you watch him, and you're just not seeing the explosive plays. And now the team is heating up in a way that's probably not conducive to him either, because they're passing the ball extremely frequently and really well. So they don't even have the fallback of in the offseason, oh, this is perfect. They're going to be a good offense, but frustratingly balanced, perfect for a guy getting a lot of carries. They're not doing the balance thing, so he's not going to get a ton of carries, so you can't just brute force your way to 25 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown. He's not efficient in any way, and he wasn't even targeted last week. So
it's bad. Yeah,
it's over.
Leg. I think. Yeah, it's close to over. Is this Keaton Mitchell? I'm assuming. Would we start Mitchell from this point on? Keaton. The Ravens. They're coping, saying they should have used him more, and that they're going to use him.
Oh,
more.
Did they?
Yeah. John Harbaugh said he wants to use him more going forward.
Good.
Short week matchup against an elite Browns defense. Let's just start with that. 4 teams on bye this week. Is he in your week 11 lineup, Kyle? Keaton Mitchell.
No, I don't think he is. I mean, I wrote this up on the waiver wire too. It's 4 touches. Dude is awesome, and he has earned the right to get more touches. Give me the line at 4.5 touches for this coming week. I'll take the over. But 8.5, I don't. My bet would be against him getting to 9 touches. And as electric as that guy is, it's really hard to bet on him. As far as that's just not a lot of work. And even if he is electric, he busts off 2 20-yard carries. What, you get to 60 scoreless yards from scrimmage? You really need the long play to also end in a touchdown for someone like him to get there. I love stashing him. I mentioned him as arguably the number 1 waiver wire ad, but that's because of he could be the guy you need for the fantasy playoffs. He's almost certainly not, at least in my opinion, the guy you need for week 11.
He probably still won't be in the top 30 for week 11. I do agree with that. DeShiel, sorry if I mispronounced your name there. Madison is not playing well. He needs to trade for a running back. One of the guys in my league wants a tight end. He's got Jake Ferguson, Sam Laporta. He has Kyron, Gus, and Connor. Should I trade one of my tight ends for one of those running backs? I would say yes.
Yeah, I'd love to get Kyron back on your roster. Hopefully there's a bit of a sour taste from this guy, having not had Kyron for now 4 weeks, I think, or maybe 5 if the bye week already counts for that. So, but his role was like Tony Pollard's role, getting all the red zone work, getting all the touches, targets. And you know what? He was doing something with them. He was what we wanted Tony Pollard to be. So hopefully you can get him for a discount, because he was top 5 running back status, from week 2 onward, basically once he shut Cam Akers out. And I feel like we maybe forget that since we haven't seen him in a while.
And he probably should reclaim almost the same role. Darrell Henderson, Royce Freeman.
Yep.
Essentially just keeping the seat warm. Would you trade Sam Laporta for James Conner? That sounds sacrilegious on first blush, but I think it's probably a pretty fair trade, actually.
Yep.
I think you've got something to work with there, DeShiel. Sorry again if I'm mispronouncing your name, but I think you got something to work with there. One of our viewers is down prodigious. Please tell me that Devon Achane can save my season.
How far back are you?
Real interesting question, Kyle. A guy who I feel like he's so small, he's so electric. I feel like to be the Devon Achane we saw earlier, he has to be 100% healthy. No one's ever 100% healthy in the NFL. He is probably coming back after missing 4 games this week. What are realistic expectations for Devon Achane after his sojourn on injured reserve? The Dolphins' running game has not looked very good without him.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just ascribing rationality to coaches, which we often don't see, but I'd have to imagine them recognizing the value of what he does. They would not bring him back if they sure, he's not going to average 14. I remember the 1 week you were he averaged 12 yards a carry and it was his worst game of the year. And it shook me. He's probably not going to do that again. But if they don't think he can be as efficient as he needs to be, why would they rush him back early? It's not like they're desperate to make the playoffs. They're 1 loss away of getting eliminated. It would be smart, and I would hope his team seems pretty smart, that they would bring him back only when he's ready to not re-aggravate the injury and when he's back to full strength. So I'm going to have him ranked as like a top 15 running back. Maybe in the first game back, I'm a little cautious. If he goes out there and gets 12 to 14 touches in 2 weeks, he will be a top 4 running back, 5 or so running back for me.
I just don't know if those days are coming back for Devon Achane. He's like
it's so hard. It's literally like one of the greatest efficiency runs ever. Even if it's like a 3-game stretch, it's one of the greatest 3-game stretches ever. That's how good it was in terms of efficiency and production. He also it wasn't like, oh, he's getting 6 carries. He was doing it on like 15 or 20. So
he's just so easy to truth too, because he's tiny. And I don't want to be shocked if the usage for him is different after he gets back. How high should the panic meter be on Hollywood Brown? I would say not that high, but do you have a different take? Kyler, like every Cardinals quarterback, loved Trey McBride. Michael Wilson's finally getting more involved. Rondale Moore had like one of his 2 or 3 pop-up games per season. Marquise Brown didn't do anything, but they had pretty good chemistry last year. Are you worried at all about Marquise Brown after an admittedly quiet Kyler Murray to Marquise Brown debut for 2023?
Yeah, I'm not really worried. I actually thought, outside of Marquise Brown, what we saw from the offense was pretty solid in that they didn't do the horizontal air raid thing. Not that we expected that offense to do it, but there was always a question of like, oh, is Cliff seeing something in Kyler? It's like we think this guy can only really throw 10 to 15, 5 to 10 yards downfield. And as you push the ball past that, that's why we're not doing that often. The team, at least strategically, did not do that. He threw 10 plus yards downfield on like 28% of his throws. That was way higher than throughout his career, which has been more like 18%. Obviously, it's a 1-game sample, but he didn't immediately look like the very unexciting Kyler we've seen. That's what I wanted to see from this team, even if it didn't directly mean Marquise Brown blew up. In fact, he had a 1-catch game, but they're playing in a style that's actually conducive to receiver fantasy points and not just like 6 catches for 20 yards from Rondale Moore or like 8 uncaught targets to AJ Green like we had last year or 2 years ago.
Oh, man, I forgot about the AJ Green years. I think it might have already been 2 years ago at this point. What a crazy little side plot to a fantasy season that was. By the way,
do you remember that final catch of his career? Didn't he have wasn't it his final catch was a super long touchdown?
Yeah, didn't he I think he mossed someone too. I think it was in the end zone. I don't think it was a yak job. I think he caught it in the end zone. I do have vague memories of that. Our guy has a follow-up, by the way. He has Etienne and Bijan. So if Achane gets back to RB1 status, do you trade away Bijan for receiver or quarterback? Basically, who are you trading away if Achane comes back healthy?
I guess it's probably actually, you're probably right that you should capitalize on he can't sustain 14 yards per carry, but also there will be questions about his role, even if it's we just don't I think his second game or whatever, he got up 18 carries. Even if it's just to say, we're going to keep more in that 12 to 14 range, the fact that a potential 20 carry game would, for a dude who's tiny, be understandably cut off the top. That doesn't have the tail end outcome existing. The answer is probably Achane.
Yeah, I'm trading Achane. He is the textbook sell high, and it could be a textbook sell high, but there's no such thing as selling high. And you just trade away an extremely valuable, explosive player. But the knock against him was that he was tiny and likely to get injured, and then that already happened. And that there's no way he can repeat that success. And that I still view him as if he comes back and has another Achane type game, I would be totally fine selling him high. Dashel, has a follow-up. Thank you, by the way, for not judging me. Would you rather trade away Laporta or Ferguson? Would you rather do Laporta for Connor or Ferguson for Kyron? I guess Ferguson for Kyron would be kind of too much of a no-brainer not to do that.
Yeah. Give me Kyron. I'd trade either of them for Kyron.
I would, but if you can turn, I think Laporta and Kyron is probably much preferable to Ferguson and Connor. So I would try to do that Ferguson deal. Okay, let's see. I got a way through here. Let's Chris Archer, a former major league pitcher, a rubber-armed type guy. Should he trade Aaron Jones in Hollywood for DJ Moore, Ramondre Stevenson, and the Jets defense? Wow, I don't see too many defense questions. What do you think, Kyle? This is an interesting one.
I guess.
I think I'd pull the trigger. I mean, Aaron Jones, we've gotten 2 games of good usage. We haven't gotten 2 games of good production. Hollywood, it's like a quarterback change. We still don't know, we're 4 or 5 years into Hollywood's career. We still don't really know what his ceiling is. DJ Moore should have Justin Fields back this week. Ramondre, I don't know.
That's why I was a little hesitant on this side. But I think you go for it with DJ Moore. I feel talk about best player available. He's as target dominant as he's ever been. And before Justin Fields got hurt, he was like starting to turn things around. So yeah, give me the DJ Moore side for BPA.
Yeah, I think I agree there. Weekly viewer Michelle arrived late now. Let's see. Has anyone asked who is Chandler?
Hi.
So Ty Chandler. Alexander Mattison is concussed. Ty Chandler got a lot of summer buzz. I feel like the knock on Ty Chandler is couldn't carve out a role last year. Had a great opportunity to carve out a role this summer and just didn't do it. But he wouldn't be the first guy who flopped a few times, and then once he just got an in-season opportunity, ran with it. What do we think let's say the near long-term odds for Ty Chandler over the next month becoming like, say, a weekly flex, Kyle?
Outside of this coming week, which we haven't seen a lot of players play through the concussion. It's never happened, but I want to say it's like 5.
It used to be like every week they did. This year, the teams are taking it more seriously.
And then we had a Schefter tweet. No one has played through a concussion this year. And every beat reporter was like, hey, you idiot, our left guard played through a concussion in week 3.
Yeah, there were a few, but yeah, skill players.
Not many. It was 4 teams beat reporters all had their one pet example of like, I remember this little factoid, but it's like 4 dudes this entire year. So he's not playing. I do think as long as that is true, Chandler should be like a strong RB2 option. They did not give any work functionally to Kenny Nwangwu, who is just a special teamer. And they brought in like Myles Gaskin, who they previously cut already. They previously cut him once already. So I think while Madison is out, Chandler is a good RB2 play. They've had the opportunity to bench Madison, and they sort of did it with Cam Akers, and then they completely undid that move anyways. So I think at best, maybe we could get Jaylen Warren type of usage from Ty Chandler, but that feels like the ceiling, and I don't know if he can attain that ceiling.
The good news is if you're looking for the straws to grasp at with Ty Chandler is that the Vikings every week seem interested in, okay, who is not Alexander Mattison?
Yeah.
And Ty Chandler is the latest not Alexander Mattison. That is another feather in his cap. Quick follow-up from Michelle here. I've been wondering this myself, Kyle. Is Fournette, did he get elevated for tonight's game?
Nope.
Okay. How long can we keep this guy?
You can cut him right now. I think Yahoo lets you cut players. Actually, you can cut anyone who hasn't started yet, but
you can. You actually can.
Yahoo's the one who let you like cut dudes who've already played, so you can like churn the back end of your roster.
Yes,
if the
pretty
settings
amazing.
work that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't activate him, and he's been with the team for like 2 or 3 weeks now.
It's only 2 weeks. It's the second game he hasn't been activated for.
Myles Gaskin's going to be lead running back for his team, and he got picked up this week.
Yeah, I just think that he's a stretch run type addition. They aren't happy with James Cook. They seem like to think he can't handle more than 15 carries. They seem to think he's not a good pass catching back right now. They can't decide, as usual, they can't decide what to do with their running backs. And I still think it's all too realistic that Leonard Fournette suddenly is handling 12 to 15 carries in the month of December.
It is realistic. Like that could happen.
3 weeks away though. Yeah.
But I'm like you said, it'd be 3 weeks away. I'm not holding a dude who's not on an NFL 53-man roster on my fantasy teams.
Come on. When you put it that way, everything sounds bad.
if we're allowed to do that, I want to pick up Dwayne McBride. Hopefully the Vikings call him up. They didn't call him up last week, but now they could.
Yeah, that is a good point. He is currently not on a 53-man roster. Chad's back. What do we do with Devin Singletary? Game blah blah blah. I'm not trying to blah 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 you there, Chad. But GameScript didn't. What do we do with him, Kyle?
I think what he's pointing out is that they were close or behind from most of that game versus the Bengals. Like it was a back and forth shootout type of affair. Yet somehow they still get their running back to 30 carries. 4th guy this year to get to 30 carries. Of all the players to get there, Devin Singletary would not have been in my top 5. I'll say that much. And I know like it does feel like they're unleashing Stroud a little bit, but dude, they cannot give up this thing where it's first down. There are 10 yards between them and the end of the first down marker, that big orange dot. Bobby Slowick, as much as I think he dials up a really good scheme, first down, dude, throws it into his running back's gut every time. Last week isn't 2 weeks ago now. It seemed like they were moving away, but sort of the way we see like, oh, Arthur Smith gets to a negative 4% pass rate over expected. Has he seen the light? No, obviously he hasn't seen the light. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Texans is they were extremely run heavy on first and second down this past week. They're playing fast and they're getting into shootouts. That means there's enough to go around for everyone. But it also means when they're being as run heavy as they are, despite the game scripts, Devin Singletary can get to 30 carries. So as long as they're down to one backfield, I'm going to have him ranked as a top 15 running back. One-man backfield, that is.
Teams, by the way, whenever they commit to Devin Singletary, he seems to be good.
They commit to him.
They do commit to him, and he's like just north of replacement level. He's always 4.2, 4.3 yards per carry. Never been a very efficient pass catcher.
No.
But never mind that. He's had a better game yesterday than Dameon Pierce has even come close to having this year.
Yep.
So we should say that. If you have a question tonight, we will be able to answer it. So get it in here. But I don't know what this one means by the way. Kyle, you are daddy.
Thank you.
That seems good. And someone here with some Hollywood Brown praise. I didn't know that Kyler overthrew him in the end zone. I didn't see much of that game. Hollywood laid it out too. You don't see that too often. No offense to Marquise Brown, but I've never really seen him dive for a ball before. So we do hope they get their timing back too. Marquise Brown, we need big plays. They never really materialized with the Ravens. They never really materialized with Cliff Kingsbury. My hope is that the horizontal raid is dead.
I think the horizontal raid looks very dead. One, they're like the only team to ever try this dumb stuff, and their quarterback was really good at throwing deep in certain years, and then they didn't do the horizontal raidy stuff in this past game. And as I think you were getting to, that's good for Hollywood, even if it didn't manifest this past week.
Yeah, it's time for Kyler can actually throw a deep ball. He's had very, very few opportunities to do. He might be like Daniel Jones a little bit where he doesn't like to do it, but his deep ball is a lot better than Daniel Jones's. And so I think we might finally get a Kyler deep ball this year. I know who Stevie is, and yeah, don't explain what it means, Stevie. I have enough of an idea what it means, so don't explain that in the YouTube chat. Would we rather have Pollard or come on?
Oh my God!
Come on, man. I'd rather have Pollard than Keaton Mitchell very easily. What do you say, Kyle?
Okay, so I guess yes, it's Pollard still. The last part, an injured Justin Fields and 2 QB. Are you saying like, do you cut Pollard for Fields?
Yeah,
it's 2 QB. It's 2 QB. I feel like you have to.
You would, but there's also got to be someone more cuttable than Pollard.
Also that. Yes, also that.
So Fields is, of course, a must add and a 2 QB. He's a must like empty the fab clip for.
Yeah. This is the stretch run. Like someone gave you a freebie, you take it and you spend all your fab on it. You
do. What is Uncle Ted asking here? I don't know if I understand. Well, we have a lot of Keaton Mitchell questions tonight. Is Keaton Mitchell if Keaton Mitchell is a must add, then so is Rico Dowdle. Do you agree with that? That's not a question, that's a statement. Do you agree with that?
I don't think it's the same thing because I don't think there's any way for Rico Dowdle to play himself into more work. Ironically, if there's anything Tony Pollard showed us over the years that aren't 2023, no matter how good the player behind the bad starting running back is, the player behind is never going to get as much work as they deserve on this team. So once they jettisoned Zeke, they immediately did the Zeke thing with Pollard. Like, we've got to get this guy, no matter how bad he looks, to 20 carries. Whereas I do think there's a path for Keaton Mitchell to work himself up to like a dozen weekly touches, and he would be really good on that. So I almost had Rico Dowdle in the waiver wire column though, but I just rationed through like, do I ever see him outside all these blowouts, which I get that they keep happening, but most teams don't always experience blowouts. In those non-blowout scenarios, do I ever see Rico Dowdle really threatening Pollard? Probably not.
Probably not. I agree with that. Keep the questions coming, by the way. Ted, also, it's more of a theory than a question. Julio Jones going to pick up any of these lost Dallas Goedert targets? Who's the backup tight end? Is it Jack Stoll?
Yeah, probably.
So, I don't know. Can we see Julio becoming something of like a pseudo tight end? Or are all these lost targets just going to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith?
I mean, probably. I mean, Julio could pick up like 1 or 2 of those targets per week, and it'd probably be better than Jack Stoll doing that. But will it be enough to make anyone care? No, probably not.
I agree with Stevie, a pseudonym. Shockingly, he's not Stevie Janowski from Eastbound and Down. But I agree with this, by the way. Arthur Smith is feeling the heat and letting it get to him. He broke a lot more easily than I expected, Art. Or he is cracking under the pressure. I was a little disturbed, so he cut the mustache. I couldn't believe he did that. I thought he was like as tilted, as rattled as humanly possible. He like grew it back though in 1 week. He's already got the mustache almost fully back already.
Oh, wow.
How would we ramp it up? How do we ramp up the pressure on Art Smith? What do you got? I think the spreading rumors there's jobs on the line during their bye week is probably enough. And just be like, the Falcons should we should all just tweet the Falcons should fire Arthur Smith during their bye week. And I'm serious. I think he actually is responding to the public pressure. He is cracking. He is tilting. Major. hardcore.
I think we should start asking him about like, why isn't Cordero Patterson getting more touches? And then as soon as he does, like, start asking about the bad players not getting touches. Because obviously every beat reporter is like, why did Kyle Pitts play 18 of 30 snaps this week? Start doing it with the players he used to use. Like Kadero Hodge gets mixed out of the rotation this week. We're like, hey, whoa, what'd you do with Kadero Hodge? And he's like, I thought you didn't want Kadero Hodge.
Start playing like legit mind games.
Yeah, exactly.
This Stevie would be capable of playing mind games with him. I'll say that. Justin Fields or Kyler Murray, rest of season, bueno.
Fields.
You think so? It's like that easy. Like you don't even have to elaborate on Fields versus Kyler.
I think Fields is the rushing as good or bad as he is. Whatever your opinions are on Fields, they don't matter nearly as much as you think because the rushing makes him one of the best fantasy options. And I'm not sure if we'll see as much. I mean, I know we won't see as much rushing from Kyler because when Fields is at his best, he is the best running quarterback in the NFL. Kyler's very good at it, but there's like levels to this. And Fields like almost broke the rushing record for quarterbacks last year.
I wonder what the Bears are going to do down the stretch, by the way.
It's really interesting.
They could be in a weird position. They don't necessarily need to tank since the Panthers are tanking for them. Yeah. They could have the number 1 overall pick irregardless of what they do. But will they go into like a pseudo tank? Or I think they really should go all out for Justin Fields and give this evaluation like one final big push and try to just determine once and for all what they actually have in Justin Fields. And
I think the thing is, like, whatever your opinions are on Fields, and this is not what I think teams would do in the NFL, the best outcomes for this franchise almost certainly lie with Caleb Williams, or if you must, also like Drake May. As much as like I think there is something to work with Fields, I've seen enough of him to say that I'm not passing on a quarterback in this upcoming draft. So I would not be worried about like, how do we figure out if Fields is the future? I think the future lies in the draft. However, I still hope they do the best thing by Fields because also let's say like he looks really good down the stretch and they still, as I would think would be the correct thing to do, want to go for a quarterback. They could almost certainly, I mean, I know it wasn't much, but what of like 5th or 6th round pick for Trey Lance, they can get more than that for Justin Fields, who I want to say looks better, gets to play, and that matters. Like there's a reason.
I think they could probably still get a 2nd round pick for Justin Fields. Would be my.
I think it would be like a conditional 3-2.
Yeah, I think they can get it. I think they could probably get a 2nd round. I think the 1st round pick ship has sailed unless he goes nuts down the stretch.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed too, but.
It'll probably be a 2nd round pick, but I also agree. If they get the number 1 pick again, even if it's not their number 1 pick, they're not passing on a quarterback 2 years in a row. Chad wondering if would we sell Cooper Kupp? Wow, a lot of Rams.
Well, he's just saying, would you get out on Rams?
Okay, yeah. Are we getting out from underneath in case Matthew Stafford, who injures a different body part every week, is not available for the stretch run, Kyle?
Probably not. No, because I think the argument with all of these guys, especially like Puka and Kupp, is like the volume. It's simply that they get every single air yard and every single carry for their team. And even if they're not near the end zone, like Puka has like 1 or 2 touchdowns this year, and he's still on a per game basis, like a top 5 fantasy receiver. So for me, especially for them, it's the volume. You can cut Atwell and you can probably cut Higbee too. Kyron would be the one concern because so much of his role was like they get within 5 yards of the end zone and they give it to him. They actually do some like really cool stuff where they're like spreading out defenses and then like, nah, just draw to Kyron anyways. So they just let him walk it right up the gut. But that would go away with Wentz because they would be probably worse. But like, let's not get it twisted. Matt Stafford's not been good this year.
No. And Sean McVay was good enough to pseudo revive Baker Mayfield and has carried over the momentum to the Bucs. Where if there was anyone who could make Carson Wentz like passable again, I think Sean McVay would have a good shot at doing it. And
he could get Colts Carson Wentz out of Carson Wentz. Like
it would
Colts
not be
Carson
panic.
Wentz was bad, but Stafford's been bad. Like he'd be worse than really Stafford, but he would not be going to a Brett Rippon level player, a Tommy DeVito level player. I think he'd be going to something above that.
I did forget about the meme that Carson Wentz doesn't target receivers. Hopefully Sean McVay could at least get him to target wide receivers. That would be nice. MT Klein wondering about Jordan Addison. Is he a sell before? This is a really interesting question. Josh Dobbs kind of unsustainably hot right now. Justin Jefferson could be back as early as this week. Is it time to maybe flip Jordan Addison for whatever you could get? And what would be a realistic return for Jordan Addison, Kyle?
Yeah, I don't really know how people are going to value Addison with Justin Jefferson returning. I think I'm probably still ranking him as like a rest of season top 25 or so wide receiver because he's really good. He's producing as a rookie, and we know rookies generally come on stronger as the year goes on. It would not shock me if just on a percentage of the offense basis, what he's seen now actually is not the highest we've seen, especially when it's looking at it relative to someone like KJ Osborne. I could see him dusting off KJ Osborne by the end of the year, whereas previously they've been uncomfortably comparable for me, who drafted a lot of Jordan Addison. So I think there's still room for growth from him. Obviously, not having Kirk Cousins under center is a bit of a hit.
I'd say more than a bit of a hit.
Yeah.
So are you saying that he wouldn't really be affected, like his target share maybe, by Justin Jefferson's return? Is that what you're saying? What are you saying there?
I think he's really talented. He's been good so far, and people are going to panic with Justin Jefferson returning. I think the Dobbs acquisition has stabilized the offense enough that I'm not panicking on anyone. Like, yeah, it won't be helpful for Justin Jefferson to return for Jordan Addison's value, but there's also this cut of the pie called KJ Osborne that he might just be able to say, this is how I stabilize myself, because he's really good.
Total. And Josh Dobbs, the returns became diminishing somewhat quickly in Arizona, but they never cratered. And Kevin O'Connell is kind of making me take notice finally as, I don't know, it's too early to call him an elite coach. He's definitely a very adaptable coach and a guy who also, he's like the anti-Arthur Smith. He focuses on his good players and relentlessly funnels them the ball. And even with Justin Jefferson coming back, he's not all of a sudden going to mothball a first-round receiver who's been producing quite well. So I don't think Josh Dobbs is going to fall off quite the way he did in Arizona. And then, yeah, even though it's 1.5 game sample size, it's enough. I think you no longer genuinely have to panic on any of these Vikings. Speaking of the Chicago Bears, who is the Bears running back to own right now? Khalil Herbert, Deontay Foreman, or has this become like kind of a weird committee? The Roschon Johnson, I feel like, has phased himself out of Kyle. Is Khalil Herbert pretty clearly the guy to roster still over Foreman, or is it more complicated than that?
Yeah, I'd probably just go with Khalil Herbert. I mean, I know we have had a lot of games of Deontay Foreman being the team's RB1, but we can't forget that they healthy scratched him for like 5 weeks when they had Khalil Herbert available to them. I don't think they'll return back to that, but like they could also just go back to that.
They could. Yeah. I don't think they'll go all the way back. I do think Roschon has played his way out of the committee. Roschon looks like maybe a guy who needs to change his body or something heading into next year. He does not look explosive laterally to me. He also doesn't seem like he's playing the game very fast. So very bad news for Roschon. I can't see Khalil dominating quite the way he did. There's no way Deontay Foreman, of course, is going back to healthy scratch territory. And it's almost like the Bears forgot why they signed Deontay Foreman. He was a very good traditional runner down the stretch for the Panthers last year. And and he's been very good this year. I'd say like 60-40 Khalil Herbert. So to me, frustrating committee.
Yeah, I think the most frustrating thing is unless they're like healthy scratching Roschon, he's going to be running routes. Like he's a good route runner and pass blocker. He's coming off his season high in route share, his almost season high in snap share, 1 or 2 games off of his season high. So he's out there playing a lot of snaps that could be valuable for someone else, but he doesn't see the ball enough on the ground to actually like, he's not a PPR scam enough. Like maybe it's like, I think he got like 4 catches last week, but that puts him into like top 48 status. Not really worth writing home about, but it also makes Deontay Foreman or Khalil Herbert frustrating to own because you can't add those PPR points on top of their actually valuable roles.
Do you agree with Uncle Ted that Brandon Cooks is a buy low? I think the Cowboys have another stretch of the schedule coming up where they're just going to demolish everyone. But he is correct that Brandon Cooks, after a really, really slow Cowboys start, has begun to look like legit number 2 receiver Brandon Cooks. Yesterday, I felt like something of a turning point too, where it was like one of these traditional laugher Cowboys games, but they just kept scoring. And to the point where Greg Olsen was like, oh, they're running up the score. He was pretty upset about it, actually. It was kind of funny. Do we consider Brandon Cooks a buy low, Kyle?
I mean, I wouldn't really call it low. He's coming off of 173 yards. That's when do you think the last time
and that his value still, like, the public perception has not caught up. Perception of 2023 Brandon Cooks has not caught up with the production he's provided over the past month.
I'm in for that. He's like the clear wide receiver 2 on an offense that really seems to be getting their stuff together. I mean, part of them getting their stuff together is that, like you said, they just ran up the score on their opponents. But they're a really good team right now, the way they're functioning. And as I pointed out earlier, I don't know if this will hold, but they are on a bit of a larger sample, starting to pass the ball more. They're not playing as balanced. Maybe that's literally a function of Tony Pollard looking bad. But if you're the wide receiver 2 on, say, a top 5 passing offense, even if you're the clear 2, there's no like question about it, 1A, 1B. If you're the clear 2, like big spike weeks, maybe not this big, but spike weeks in general should come by relatively frequently. So per public perception of him, I actually do think like by that measure, buy low, sure, buy high.
I agree too. I think the Cowboys have finally accepted what kind of offense they should be playing to. Maybe Tony Pollard's struggles have pushed them in this direction, but they understand that they can throw the ball, they can score points through the air. Dak Prescott is Dak Prescott. Chad with his most dastardly question yet. I don't. It's hard to classify this one as a buy low. Do you actually think Aaron Rodgers is going to play football this year?
What are their? Do you know what the team's odds are of making the playoffs? Because
they took a big hit last night. I know that.
That's true. Yeah, I'm going to say they don't make the playoffs and he doesn't return. That's my.
I think I agree with that too. And the only other theory is that it was not a full tear of his Achilles tendon, and he's working back from like a partial tear. Even if it is a little crazy, I know he's kind of mugging for the camera, but I feel like it's not normal to be even walking around normally 3 months or less than 3 months.
He's throwing already too.
He is. I mean, like, and he's walking like without a limp. They needed to win that game last night. They needed that.
I think that's the problem. I forgot about that. Is that like, I'm not sure if he's ready. It would be an incredible, it'd be like, I think probably the fastest in NFL history return if he even made it back for the playoffs. And it does feel like, I mean, with the way they keep using Zach Wilson, as in not benching him, they're not going to make the playoffs.
We've got a few minutes left. If you got a question, the time to ask it is now. So many Keaton Mitchell questions this week. I've been surprised how infrequently this has happened this year, where the entire chat is asking about the same guy, but not surprising. There's a lot of questions on Keaton Mitchell. If you were going to flip Keaton Mitchell to sell high on Keaton Mitchell, this would be a true sell high. Like, what is a realistic return for I don't really know what a realistic return for Keaton Mitchell is. It's like another guy that people don't believe in, basically. Maybe like Rashee Rice. What kind of return do you think you could get for Keaton Mitchell?
Yeah, I'm probably trying to I get with all this like questions about him now. I'm feeling like, oh, what can I get? Let me go see what leagues I have. Keaton
Maybe
Mitchell
Jordan Addison.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Go get one of the rookie receivers. Rashee Rice was a good one. Maybe you could even ladder it up to like Jordan Addison or JSN. I like that.
Yeah, it's going to be basically a wide receiver 3 or 4, I think, that people aren't sold on. And people aren't sold on Keaton Mitchell, clearly, based on all the questions on him. And you're going to flip him, it's going to be for someone else that people aren't entirely sold on, probably at a different position. So I think that's a really great place to start. It's kind of like the wide receiver 3-4 borderline, maybe one of the rookies on the wide receiver 3-4 borderline. DJ Moore, are we buying DJ Moore? He was a weird guy. He was going totally nuts for the Fields injury. It wasn't on like 10 plus targets. I think he maybe only hit 10 targets one time, but the production was speaking for itself. Do you think that will just pick up where it left off, or was that kind of a fluky streak of like super mega production in one of your terms? And I can't remember. You say hella mega. I can't remember.
No.
Are they going to pick up where they left off for Justin Fields' injury?
I think you're thinking of like a nuclear trillion-yard ultra neutral touchdown. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he had a 200-yard game or whatever. So
230-yard game.
So good. Yeah. So that was fluky. He will almost certainly never do that again in his career, because very few guys do it. So to be as efficient as he was on high target shares, but the pie was relatively small, that probably won't hold up. But the fact that the team started unleashing Fields a little bit and he was playing better and the target share was extreme from DJ Moore, that all feels pretty good. I actually do think this is like a good buy low spot.
And the fact that the target share held steady with Tyson Bagent, it's clearly a coaching staff commitment to DJ Moore, not just like a Justin Fields commitment. I do think he could really resume and Justin Fields comes back. We haven't gotten one of these yet today. I always like these. Jerry is ahead by 13 points. He only has Tyler Bass going. He's facing Russ Wilson. This feels like a nail biter. Is Jerry going to pull it out?
65%. I'm guessing Russell Wilson projects for like 15 points.
Probably
or
14 or
like
15
that.
points.
14 or 15 points. And Tyler Bass, I don't know, like 8 or whatever, which puts you, pretty clearly ahead. So yeah, I'd say you're like 65% to win.
I think we could get the first kind of actual compiling Russell Wilson game this evening, though, because they're going to have to throw. Right. I mean, I don't know. I guess Tyrod Taylor didn't have to throw against the Bills. Weird stuff's been going on with the Bills. But Jerry, I would say you're like 62%. That might be high. You're at least at 51%. I will say that. Should we trade Aaron? Excuse me. He has a follow up here. Should we trade Aaron Jones for Jahmyr Gibbs? Pretty interesting question. I say yes. What do you say?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say it's not close, but
it's kind of not close.
Yeah,
I'd rather have 12 to 15 touches in this Lions offense than even 20 to 24 in this Packers offense. Something's just not right with the Packers offense. Something's not right with Aaron Jones. And even if you gave, Aaron Jones like a way higher touch floor than Jahmyr Gibbs, I think
that's how I thought about it.
Yeah.
Gibbs got goal line work last week too, which I was surprised. If you
he
tell me
it was weird. Apparently, according to Mark Garcia, who was that they was this you? I can't remember who it was.
Wasn't me. I didn't have this game.
It was Mark Garcia. Apparently, they were bringing David Montgomery into the game after Gibbs took them down to the 1, but David Montgomery waved Jahmyr Gibbs back on the field and wanted.
I think I remember seeing this. Yeah, I think I remember seeing this.
So
I'll take it. We take these wins however the hell we can get them, whether it's the coaching staff decision, the injuries, or David Montgomery himself rostering Jahmyr Gibbs in DFS. We take our wins where we can get them.
This might be the last one here. Pick 2, Kyler, Tua, CJ Stroud, Goff. Pretty clear 2, I would say.
Go Tua Stroud. Yeah.
I mean, I hope we're not ahead of our skis on CJ Stroud, but I don't know. It's hard to have a more convincing 2-game sample size.
He's him, bro. He is him.
He is hemming very hardcore. Ted, we'll give Ted the final question of the night. He's been very active in the chat. Would rather Quentin Johnston, again, who finally made a few plays when it mattered most down the stretch today, or streak route specialist Jalen Guyton?
I think it's Jalen Guyton.
Oh, man, really? Come on, man. Live a little.
Did Johnson make plays? He had a 10% target share.
He made some
definitely
plays.
Jalen Guyton. This dude cannot play.
He made some anti-plays before he made some plays. Then he did eventually make some plays, but you're probably right. There's no right answer there. There's definitely a wrong answer there, but there's no right answer there.
Fair.
What I think we've kind of already answered. Did we already answer this exact question?
I think we just answered this exact one. I said Fields.
Salim, we're going to say Fields. And just because the rushing floor is higher, the rushing ceiling is much higher. The passing production will be a little better for Kyler, but Kyler's passing production isn't going to be better enough than Fields' rushing production to justify Kyler over Fields. All right, we'll call it a day here. Pretty excited about this game. I don't know why I just said that's Russell Wilson and the Broncos.
Dude, Russell's been good this year.
Dude, the Broncos are making an end around on a playoff spot, by the way. The mainstream media is not talking about this, Kyle.
They won 3 in a row or something like that.
They're making an end around on a playoff spot. It takes me no pleasure. Oh, wow. I pronounced his name right. I'm afraid I don't want to say it again, Salim, in case I say it wrong the second time. But as Kyle knows, I try very hard to get the names correct.
Extremely hard.
Savulu is praying for Pollard production.
Fine. You keep praying to different gods until one of them works, because I've tried a few of them.
Yeah, let's cycle through them. Just leave no stone unturned there. So for Kyle Dvorchak, I am Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for checking out our chat. Check out Kyle's waiver wire column. Check out our podcast all week. Check out my rankings later this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're pretty sure we're back next Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. We hadn't officially talked that through, but I think we're going to be doing it Thanksgiving week, Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you later.